So Temptation's hook is pretty cool, and so is Lucent Blade. Come to think of it, so is Mask of Bakris. Hey, remember that video I promised forever ago about Lucent Blade and then I forgot about it because I suck? Well, happy birthday. Before we get into this, we need to address the elephant in the room. I am using a sword, and we need to talk a bit about the mod itself. There aren't any real specific skill trees, so you can just kind of do whatever you want with that. You can, however, detonate any stasis crystals you create with your sword because it's a bolt caster, basically. What, you thought I was going to use a light subclass? Get real, I'm part of the Drifter gang now. But before we go any further, let me show you exactly what it is that I'm doing, because I feel like if you can see it, you'll understand better, and you will know. You see what I'm talking about? You see? You see? It's just a Lost Sector boss I cherry-picked for this video, but still, what you just saw on screen is a little concept build I've been working on, one that I think is real nifty and may even come in handy in the near future. It starts with two things, a mod and an exotic. Lucent Blade is an anomaly of a mod that let us ruin bosses last season, and while the forever legendary Falling Guillotine and Temptation's Hook were nerfed, they both still retained some of their potency. Before Falling Guillotine entered the fray, the Bolt Caster was one of the highest damage swords that you could get, and I think with the right mod and the right exotic, I might be able to make it even just a little bit stronger. So let's take a look at the sword itself here real quick. I'm using a Temptation's Hook with Relentless Strikes and Whirlwind Blade. Gotta keep that damage increase. Those two perks are still key for sword damage. We can stack Lucent Blade on top of that for the extra sword damage as well at the cost of a charge of light. That's gonna play into something else as well, something new and foreign. Mask of Bakris is a special exotic, one that is stasis specific. It modifies the Hunter dodge roll into an ability called Light Shift, and after said shift, all arc damage from any of the player's available weapons or abilities is buffed. This opens up for extreme damage potential because there are multiple buffs and mods that are stacking on one another at the same time on a multiplicative level, and I'm going to show you exactly how it works here in just a second. However, there is a drawback. Light Shift activates and then is immediately followed by a 10-second cooldown, and in that cooldown, class ability energy does not recharge. Its damage buff is also a bit weird too, as it only seemingly affects whatever targets you shift near, so let me just show you what I'm talking about. As you can see, I shifted near this servitor and it opens itself up for crits, but if I take those rounds and shoot at something else, there's no real damage buff, or at the very least not one that's visible to the player. This is most definitely a balancing mechanic for certain. They probably were banking on people like Glad to just break it on stream or something. But either way, now you understand how Bakris works and why it's essentially the only real exotic worth a Hunter Revenant's time. High mobility is recommended with this to compensate for all of these things. Basically just try and shimmy some mobility mods wherever you can, unless you've got god tier stat rolls that I just don't have for whatever reason. But the premise here is simple. We're taking two buffs and stacking them on top of one another. Nothing more and nothing less. This is one of those things that you want to experiment with against bosses or big boy targets for the chunk damage. Essentially what we're doing is we're taking Lucent Blade and Light Shift and we're making a big damage sandwich. The Bolt Caster will damage over time for a few seconds on a heavy attack, and the idea here is to shift before stacking Whirlwind Blade on top of Lucent Blade. As of right now, that's what's going to create the optimal amount of damage and make this mod combo worth your time, and definitely worth a bit more exploration and research. Either way, as I said earlier, this is just a concept at the moment, nothing more. You can expect to see more about this, however, in the following weeks as I spend some more time tinkering with it. Swords have been one of the best sources of damage for quite some time, and honestly, I only see that getting better in the future. Anyway, you guys all know the drill. I'm in my cell if anybody needs me.